Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris BT, and I'm so happy and fortunate to have an incredible array of panelists before me sharing the stage here with me. And welcome to part 3 of the Influencer Marketing Series from Africa Digital Leadership. I'll go right away and introduce our panelists. But before the panelists, let me introduce you to Kanye, who's been the producer behind the scenes of the show. I'm working alongside myself. So she's the one making sure that everything goes well. So just because we're dealing with technology, should anything go wrong, she's going to actually carry on until I actually log in again. So let me go and talk about these panelists. And let me start with ladies, right? So let me start with the lady on top, Yummy Mami. So, if you guys think she needs an introduction, then okay, I don't know if you've been in Kenya. I don't know if you've been in Kenya for the past year at least, So, Yummy Mami is a very influential person that has really changed the way influencing work, especially when it comes to small businesses. And this is how I actually came to hear of her. She's grown tremendously, and today, words can actually just not really describe what it is that I'm trying to say, but I'm really happy to have her on board. The next person that I would like to talk about is Sarah Oyungu. You guys have watched part 2. She was the one with a lot of energy and a lot of wisdom, and you couldn't miss her. So we had to bring her back. So Sarah is currently the director of digital marketing for Africa for Standard Chartered, and before that, Sarah has worked in many different organizations as well, blue chip, and she comes with a real wealth of experience. The gentleman that is currently on the show is called Eric Achola. Eric Achola in his previous life he's a seasoned marketer. In his previous life, he's been in the breweries. He worked at Coca-Cola. He worked at Safaricom. So you name it. And he has both brand and digital experience. So this is set to be a really, really interesting session today. There's one person that seems to be missing, and his name is Edgar Obare. Has somebody seen him? If someone sees him, just tell him that we're waiting for him. But nonetheless, we're going to actually start, because you know how it is at Africa Digital Leadership, we start on time. So we're going to go ahead with the first question, right? And the first question will really be is a question addressed to Yummy Mami. And it's basically, we would like to have a quick summary. Yummy Mami, I found out about you. I saw you at the beginning when you started posting. And you were posting really quickly and really often, and people were watching and saying, "Who's this?" And all of a sudden, they got accustomed to you and they just couldn't do without you. So could you please tell us about your journey to becoming an influencer? Was it a deliberate choice, or was it all planned? So.
Okay, so first of all, so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. So I have been a content creator come influencer for the past 2 years, actually. Actually, September marks 2 years since I've been doing this full time. Before that, I was in communications, I was in marketing. I actually studied international relations. So how I ended up in communications and marketing is just Jesus. Honestly, it's just Jesus, because I think he was like, you just need to be doing something in communication. So I was working in corporate, I was working in digital. Then around maybe July, August of 2018, I realized that my following on Instagram specifically was really, really growing. And it wasn't something that I was doing deliberately. Actually, for me, every time that I went onto social media, it was more of like, I was craving for like a community of women that I could speak to, because at that time I had gotten married very recently, just the year before. I had my little daughter, and I felt like there was so much that I was struggling with that I didn't have an outlet of how to. You can speak to your husband, but what do men know? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just like, he just doesn't get it. He just doesn't understand. So I found that I would go on Instagram and like talk about my struggles from just a very like, I'm just trying to release, I'm trying to let things go. And I realized that the more that I did that, the more that women reached out to me and said things like, oh my God, I can really relate to this. Wow, I didn't know I was the only one going through this. And the more that they would do that, the more I was like, oh, so this is actually a thing. So talk about things, anything from motherhood motherhood to marriage to I mean sexual health to menstrual things to do with my menstrual cycle, like literally anything, hair, makeup, like literally anything that I as a woman go through. So I would categorize actually my sphere of influence as like womanhood, so to speak. So in September 2018, that's when I earned like my first check, you know, from influencing. And that's when I was like, hey, this can be a business. This is something that I could actually earn money from. And at that point, I went and I spoke to my husband and I was like, babe, you see, if I actually channel all my energy and all my effort into this thing, I'll probably be able to make more money, because obviously juggling corporate and juggling, you know, like trying to be an influencer and trying to create content was not that easy. So I said, quit my job, focus on just being at home and on creating content. And since then, I can say that I have really grown. Like at that point, which is September 2018, when I actually started my YouTube channel, I think I was at like maybe 10,000 followers on Instagram and 0 on YouTube. And since then, now I'm at 170,000 on Instagram. And I can say that I feel like my trajectory has been encouraging, so to speak. It's been encouraging for me because I feel like the more that I create, the more I'm authentic, the more I carry myself with integrity on my platform, the more I'm just myself, the more people are like, yeah, I want to speak to her, I want to listen to her. And like my mom is always telling me I just talk too much. So I told her, now I talk and I'm paid to talk. So how about that, mom? How about that? And of course, for me, the bigger the audience, the better, because obviously I feel like I have something important to say, whether it's just my opinion or whether it's something to do with a societal issue. So I like the fact that my audience is growing. I love the fact that the influencer market in Kenya is growing as well. And like I can't even compare where we are today versus where we were 2 years ago. So like right now, I feel like I'm in a good place. I still have a lot to grow. Like I'm still hoping to like achieve some big things, but I'm really happy with where I've gotten to right now as an influencer, as a content creator.
Wow. Interesting answer. Thank you very much, Yamimi, for this. So, guys, as you see, so it was not planned actually, you know. So you just really produce content, guys. You can become an influencer in. So how long did it take? 6 months? 1 year? 1 year?
Yeah. From when I actively started creating content, I would say something like 3 months actually.
3 months.
But obviously now the state or like the consistency of the brand deals and the brand sponsorships and the partnerships has obviously gotten more consistent, like after I passed one year of influencing. But from the beginning, from like the first 3 months, I was like, okay, there's like a bit of traction.
All right. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're really happy because Mr. Edgar Obare has just joined us, which is really good. You know, we knew he was going to show up. We knew he was going to show up. How are you doing, Edgar?
I'm good. Sorry, we had a blackout, so couldn't. Had to fix that before I could come back.
If Kenya Power is watching right now, we need to really talk to them. But anyway, let's just keep quiet. So Edgar, no, I mean, yeah, exactly. So Edgar, Yamimami has managed to introduce herself. So guys, for those who are connected today, again, Edgar does not really need an introduction. I'm almost sure that a big majority of the people connected today have seen one of these stories or are following him or whatever it is, you know. So Edgar is basically some serious computer engineer. He studied computer science, you know, and right now he's a blogger and a YouTuber that is really famous for his particular analysis, you know. So Edgar is here today. Edgar, I would like you to talk to us about your journey. So was this planned out? Did you want to become an influencer? How long have you been creating content for, really? You know, could you please tell us?
Okay. Hi, guys. Been doing this. I started mainly on YouTube around 2018. I've been creating for a year, and I was mainly doing it as I was studying my master's, and I found a lot of joy in creating content. So this being an influencer thing, like, yeah, I was creating a lot of content on YouTube. I grew big there, but Instagram, I was really very small. I think even in January, I was around like 5,000 followers. I kept asking people, please get me to 10,000 so I can get the swipe up, please. And today, I think it's 8 months later, I'm at 200K plus. So I would say like, this is something I wanted this. I I think for a lot of people, you go through life not knowing what you really want to do. And for me, like I'm 28 now, it took me 28 years to figure out exactly what I want to do in my life. So I did the degrees, which my parents are not happy about that I'm not using. But like I remember last year, a time like right now, I came back to Kenya and I said, I want to do this YouTube social media thing for the next 6 months. And if it doesn't work out, then okay, I'll look for a job. But hey, here I am. I don't need to look for a job anymore. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, not really by accident, but really chasing it and really grinding. I used to even put out like 3, 4 videos a day because I really wanted my stories to impact people and to be heard everywhere. And yeah, I got what I wanted. It's been quite a trip.
Quite.
Wow. Amazing words. You see, guys, panelists, I told you he's not really a man of a few words. I told you he would talk. Just go ahead. Yeah. So thank you very much, Edgar, for this. And as you can see, guys, with a bit of focus, you guys can actually really make it. For those who actually believe that they would like to have a career, when it comes to content creation, it takes a lot of focus, it takes a lot of discipline, and it would work. So let's shift gears. I would like to talk to the other two panelists because they represent brands here. You know that globally, I mean, what's happening, we've been observing that big companies like P&G and so on are rethinking their approach to influencer marketing because they might not necessarily be too convinced with the uptake, So I would like to ask Eric Achola, I would like to start with you and ask you, what level of innovation, what level of innovation do brands expect when working with an influencer?
Thank you, panelists, my fellow panelists, and thank you, the audience, for tuning in today. I think you've got to look at your question from 2 dimensions. I think one is what risk appetite does the brand have from a starting point of view? And then the second one is that risk appetite in tandem or congruent, perhaps, with the influencer. So in terms of innovation, I like to say there's two parts of it. There's renovation and innovation. Renovation is a tweak, adaptation, a patch to recreate and reposition to make it slightly better or more amenable. But I think fundamentally, as the market and the sphere of marketing changes and consumer behavior changes, the risk appetite for the marketers and the marketeers must change, because without risk, there is no growth. And without growth, there is no brand. So what I see going forward is a significant level of more appetite to try new things and a lot more boldish behavior that will come from marketers in terms of trying to capture market share, win customers, and win relevance in the marketplace. So I can only see it getting better because, everyone will tell you, Henry Ford, if you wanted a faster vehicle, you'd ask for a faster horse. Innovation is the only way to go. And I think it's going to be with us now. It's going to be with us in the future. And I think the risk appetite can only get better for both influencers and for brands.
Wow. Interesting. Without risk, there's no growth. And without growth, there's no brand. That's correct, right? That's what you said. I'm going to use that, man. I don't know about you. So Sarah, I would like to hear from you. What do you think? What do you think of that? What level of innovation? And you've worked with a lot of influencers before. So, and I know that people cannot just come with some random proposal and give you a proposal and you say, yes, I'll do it. So what level of innovation do you require? Do you expect from the influencers that you work with?
Sure. When I talk about what level of what we're expecting from influencers, Eric is in my brain. When I hear words like risk appetite, I'm like, yes, that's where we are. Because brands consistently have to think about, when they're engaging influencers, what level of risk that they're willing to take. Am I willing to take an influencer who has a large following and then tomorrow will punch a prostitute and be arrested in the street? So it's constantly that balance of saying, do I want the cut through, or do I want to just get the ears and see if people will actually, follow what the influencer is doing? I think one of the key things we need to note is we're in a very interesting state right now with COVID-19. Because with the shutdowns, influencers have more power than they have ever had before, because people are sitting at home. And you can only Netflix and chill for a certain amount of time. Then you have your time on your Instagram stories, you have your time on TikTok, you have your time, on Facebook, you have your time on Twitter. And so I think influencers now more than ever have a really key role in the ecosystem. And so I think, as Eric was saying, brands have to engage with influencers, especially if they want that cut through that's a more heartfelt connection as opposed to a tactical connection. There's an offer, so I come in, or there's a coupon, so I come in, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's an interesting time. It's an interesting time for both brands and influencers to interact and to find ways to drive consumer behavior.
All right, thank you very much for this, Sarah. But what level of conversion? So when we talk about, let's talk about conversion, because at the end of the day, when you invest, you need to convert, period. Whatever it is, or it depends on what it is that you're doing. If you're doing brand, I suppose, you're going to use social listening and all these tools. But let's say you engage an influencer for a particular campaign to convert and to get sales. So what are we talking about when we talk about conversion? Do you guys have like a standard rate? So do you have metric that you use? And I'm still talking to you two brands. So let's start with Eric, for example.
So it's very broad, and I like to look at it. Am I doing launching a new proposition to try and drive brand awareness? Am I trying to stimulate some growth in the market? Am I trying to create buzz around my specific proposition? So the metrics are very varied. But primarily what influencers need to understand is, and let's take the most basic, probably what you'd ask an influencer to do, which is really to perhaps build awareness and to create a bit of buzz in the marketplace. So there is some appreciation that you've got a new proposition in the marketplace. And so in that instance, I'll be looking at what were my awareness levels before I brought in my influencer. Of course, I expect to see a spike in the metric in terms of awareness specifically. But ultimately, after using the influencer, I don't expect it to dip to below or to be at par with where I was earlier. I expect to see an uplift. That means the influencer has had some impact in terms of changing my trajectory. Okay? And so oftentimes, when you engage with influencers, I feel they're very good at getting you that peak. But then that trough, in terms of holding, and in many businesses, it's called the decay effect. After the major event, how long are you able to hold the tail? And that's where significantly, I think there is a significant discordance or disproportionate appreciation of the level of, I think, what the influencers continue to do in terms of to tag. So many times, a lot of my marketing colleagues will tell you there is a feeling that a lot of influencers are there for the meal ticket, for the paycheck, and they're not too cognizant or too appreciative of the challenge the person who's approving that budget has to do with, because then it becomes a justification issue. Because the marketer is always being put on the spot for impact. Okay, and so these trends, these objectives, and when you take a partnership approach more with influencers, I think you get a better outcome. And so I think the view from a marketing point of view for me would be, how can you work with a cohort of influencers on a more continuum basis that allows them also to build a little bit more credibility, because it manages aspects of saturation, and it also gives me license to talk about long-term impact as opposed to short-term bursts.
Wow. Thank you so much, Eric, for this. We were still warming up, but it's really influencer versus brands. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and talk to the influencers. Sarah, allow me to move on from this question. I'll bring you back, because I see that there's one question that would actually tie back into this. So I would like to ask something else. So the next question is really something about, let's say, for example, you have a job with a company. Let's say Yamimami, you get a deal with a brand. And so when do you push back? So when do you push back? When do you say, this is it? This is the limit. I'm not doing this. The scope was this. And I'm sure something like that has happened before. Edgar, we're going to hear your views as well. So Yummy Mommy?
Okay, so at first I like what Eric has said. At some point I was like, I feel targeted. I feel judged as an influencer, but I completely get where you're coming from in terms of sometimes brands come with like a massive things that they want to achieve, but their budget is like this. Or sometimes they're like, they want to achieve like, I don't know, 98% awareness in the market, and then they say, oh yeah, but it's a 1-week campaign. You know, like sometimes I feel like brands are not realistic about what can be achieved in what span of time. So there are times, for example, when a brand reaches out to me and they say like the time frame for what they are expecting us to do is too short. In that case, I tell them, you know what, they are setting me up to fail, because there's no way that I'll be able to achieve what it is that they want to achieve within that short period of time. And right now I'm talking about corporates, because with small businesses, it's a completely different ballgame altogether. I don't know if we'll have time to talk about that later, Chris, but with small businesses, all this doesn't apply. This mostly applies to big corporates. So one, when the brand expects you to do too much in too short a time period, or with too little budget, somebody comes and tells you, so it's 20,000, but we want 17 posts, 8 YouTube videos, and 25,000 stories. And you're like, but where, sir? How, sir? How will I feed my children? That's the first thing. Then the second thing is when there's no support from the brand. Several things are required for a campaign to be successful. It's not just my work as an influencer. It's my work as an influencer. It's the support the brand gives in terms of, okay, I've pushed people to your page, but no one is responding to the DMs. There's no customer service. There's no like following up on the leads. If that is not there, then it won't matter how much work I do, because if now once the client has come to the brand, if it's now they're dropping the ball, it'll be like, but you guys are not doing work. But actually it's the brand that's not holding up their end of the deal, so to speak. And then the third thing that's most important is the product or the service good? Because let me tell you, it doesn't matter how amazing you can be, Kim Kardashian trying to sell, I mean, I don't know, a butt implant, but like if the product is just not good, it's just not good. You know what I'm saying? Like you can sell and you can sell and you can sell, but it's just not a good product. So I in the initial months of my trying to be an influencer, obviously, when you start getting money from influencing, because you didn't know you could make money from, just talking, you just take any brand that comes, just like, oh, it's this drink, okay, it's this bank, okay, it's this what. Like you take all of them, but over time I've realized that does more harm to my brand than it does good, because at some point people will be like, oh, but I tried this service and actually it wasn't that good. So before the campaign starts, I'm always like careful to check the product, check the service, see that it actually works and it's something that I myself would actually use as a woman, as a parent, as a mother, whatever, that I would actually use before I start selling it to others. Because if those three things, the brand being strong in support, me being strong in terms of the kind of content I'm creating, and the product or the service being good, are not all aligned, then there's no point spending money on that kind of a campaign.
Wow, thank you so much for this, Yummy Mommy. I see that you're really passionate about this. Sounds like you're actually going through this. But what I want to find out basically, so what do you do? Let's say, for example, someone changes the scope within, you're running a campaign and they want to change the scope. So do you say, no, I don't want to do this, I'm not doing this? Or what do you do? Do you go back to the contract? What do you do? Just
first of all, if all this should be happening before you have signed the contract. So at no point should it be like, sometimes you get a client and they really want to rush you and they're like, yeah, our campaign starts tomorrow. I don't know why brands do that, by the way. Like you've been planning this campaign from 2001, but the day before the campaign is the day they're going to message the influencer to tell them they want them on the campaign. So first they try to rush you into it, and then they're like, yeah, we just need you to post tomorrow. And then you do that post tomorrow, and then something doesn't go right, and then suddenly it's your fault. So one, all the discussions need to happen before the posting period. So that by the time you're starting to post, you already know exactly what is expected of you, exactly the kind of content that you need to create, whether it's stories or it's a video or it's a post. Some clients will want to see the content in advance, although I really don't like such clients, because I'm like, just chill, let me do my job. But usually, if at that point, before we've reached that contract stage, I don't feel comfortable, usually I'll just say, thank you so much for considering me for this opportunity. However, I'm not available to take this up at the moment. I wish you all the best as you launch or as you continue with this campaign. And this is an open market. So I mean, I can say no, they can say no. I've also had clients who in the last minute have told me, sorry, we're not gonna proceed with you anymore, which I mean, it's their prerogative, because as long as nothing is signed, then it's all just talk, you know.
All right, thank you so much for this, Mr. Edgar Barry. You've dealt now, I mean, the past month or so, with a lot of clients. You know, so when do you have you had one of those scenarios where someone tells you that they would like you to do something specific, you know, for their business, and all of a sudden they change, you know, the expectations change, and if that's the case, you know, how would you react? Or if that happens in the future, how would you think you would actually handle such a scenario?
I think for me, primarily, I work with small businesses, and yeah, sometimes brands come to you and they want you to do something for them. And when they send you, I think this is something brands need to understand. When you come to an influencer or whoever you want to market, they know what they do best, better than you. Some people, like if you come to me, you know what my content is. So I might give you ideas of how I think your brand or your business will do well, but then you have your own ideas, or you want them to do something that you did with someone else, and then they don't speak to the same audience of the same. Everyone has their own ways of doing. So trust the influencer to do what they do, because they know best their audience, and they know exactly how they got here and how to turn sales or whatever it is you want to achieve. So for most people, me, I'm very clear in the beginning. It's you came to me, so let me use my skills, my expertise to make you money, and you need to trust me enough to let that happen instead of you trying to dictate and control every single step or every detail. Yeah, I understand brands have their own like there are things that they feel like this is not my brand or this is not my, then go to influencers who fit that specific brand or image you imagine yourself to be. But if you want to access a different kind of audience, or if you want to access, like for me, I think I'm pretty authentic. I also like Yami Mama. She's pretty authentic, and for us, it's we promote or we align with things that we find useful, or we care about our audiences first. Like my first loyalty is to my audience. So that's why even sometimes if a brand comes to me and maybe they go and do something that is not okay, or they go and like the other day we were having a problem with a restaurant which was selling crappy food to people. So I was pretty disappointed that I was the one who promoted them. Then I have to be the one who have to inform their followers and their audience that they're not, their food is not like the pictures. And it's usually a sad day, but we try to, I guess, be cordial about it. I have to deal with the customers who are disappointed. Then I have to talk to the brand as well and find a way to mediate these problems. But yeah, this is when I guess we have to push back as influencers, because like Joanne said, what you sell has to align. It has to be a good product. We just can't sell anything. It's very hard. So yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much for this. So Edgar basically is saying, listen, guys, before you contact me, please Google me. You know, Google me. You know what I'm good at something. So you come to me because I'm great at something. And then when you give me the job, please trust me. You know, let me do my job. Let me do what I do best. Or I would like to hear from one of the brands. Eric, I see you boiling there. You know, you've been wanting to say something. What do you have to say?
No, I'm not going to speak until Sarah's spoken.
All right. So let's go to the
ladies first.
Let's go to the lady first. Sarah, what do you think?
That's why Eric is my pal, man. I based on what I've heard from both of our influencers, I think the key thing here is for brands, we start from our customers. If I know my customer and what they want, why they value me as a brand, then I know the influencer who I want to select. Yeah. And customer, especially the Kenya market, is very savvy. By the way, the Kenya market is very savvy. The Kenya market is very sophisticated in that the Kenya market is very quick to know when a brand is engaging an influencer who is not congruent with their brand ethic. And I know we select influencers because influencers can say things that we as brands can't, you know. And so that's point number one. KPIs that matter. So the things that the metrics that matter come down to and I say this as Sarah Yungu, the marketer, as opposed to Sarah Yungu, Standard Chartered. I know I've had various conversations as well, but I think influencers, their power is education as opposed to conversion. So when it's education, it is letting people know what I have for customers that's going to make their lives better. Because as a brand, I have selected an influencer who says, this is the life stage that you're in. This is what you care about. So as a brand, I come in and say, here, what is it that you care about? And here's the content, or here's the value proposition that I can give you that improves your life. Then that way, both myself as a brand and the influencer, we both benefit because we are actually filling a need that customers have because this is what they're looking for. And then I would say, again, with working with brands selecting influencers, it has to do with brand affinity, where it's, Edgar said, you Google me, you know the content that I do. So if I've Googled you, I know the content that I do, I don't have the risk appetite, as Eric mentioned earlier, to engage with your type of content, then I need to leave you alone. It could be that, yes, you have the reach, but my God, the things that you will do to me. And I have to say, from a brand perspective, that influencers in the Kenya market, credible influencers do good work. But there are unscrupulous influencers who will do work and then later hold you hostage so that you can keep paying them to not do bad work on your behalf. So it's a fine balance. You really have to look at the influencer. You need to look at the credibility of your influencer, because at the end of the day, influencers, Yami Mami mentioned it, they have to have values. And I think for brands to engage with influencers, they need to do their homework and engage with influencers who have values, who will push back and say, that's not really what my followers want to hear about, or I know you want me to push X product, but it's not relevant to my people. So thanks, but no thanks. I know the rent is due tomorrow, but I'm not doing this work. So it's all a fine balance. It's a balancing act, but I don't think it's a balancing act if brands, and I put the responsibility on brands, do their homework. An influencer has already discovered their niche. They know who they're speaking to. They know why people are following them. So the brands need to do the homework of finding out why I am why I'm selecting this influencer, why my clients might be, or my customers might be within the influencer's followers, and how do we go from there? So that's my input.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah, for this. Yami Mami wants to say something. Eric, do you want to say something, or should we let the lady answer before you?
You know me, February.
I know you. This is why Yami Mami, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to two of the things that Sarah mentioned. The issue of education versus conversion. I think I slightly disagree with you there, because I believe that it really depends on what brand it is and what it is they're trying to achieve. For big brands and like banks, like for example, Stanchart, yes, definitely it's going to be more of like an education thing. But for example, small businesses or like businesses that operate like online, there's, for example, online digital TV platform that I've worked with for a really long time. For them, the key metric is conversion, and they measure that through the link that they give you. And every month they're able to be like, okay, 200 people got downloaded the app because of you. 300 people did it this month. The next month is like 10 people. So they're able to actually measure that conversion. For them, it's not about education. It's how many people are you bringing on the platform. So I think for the education versus conversion, it's both of them. I think influencers can really have an impact for both of those metrics. And then the other thing is talking about, I like what you said about, you just decide, is this the influencer for you or is not the influencer for you? But even when you decide that this is the influencer for you, there are some brands that want to actually have utmost control over what you're posting. So for example, brands who want you to put their logo on your content. I mean, because for them, they're like, no, as long as our logo is seen, we have the awareness, not realizing that once you put your logo, automatically the audience switches off, because this is not TV. Like, they have not come to watch Standard Chartered YouTube channel. They've come to watch, Yummy Mommy's YouTube channel. And then as I'm speaking, that's when I bring in the brand. So brands that want you to brand content, or brands that want to create the content for you, like they're like, oh, we're going to send you a video and then post the video, thinking that that's what's going to actually have the impact, but really it doesn't, because people are not interested in that. People are interested in just seeing my life and seeing how the brand fits into my life. So yeah, just wanted to mention those.
Jeez, a lot of energy, a lot of energy. I see that we're working out. Thank you very much, Mr. Achola.
Thank you, Chris. I think very interesting conversations. I like the spectrum of debate. I think fundamentally, if you ask, I think this is what Sarah said, is a personal point of view. Is it education versus conversion? And I think Joanne is absolutely right. There are some specific conversion metrics that you can actually attribute to an influencer. But I think when you look at core marketing in terms of conversion, we're looking at largely intention to purchase and product off the shelf or off the, what I'd call a e-commerce platform. And I believe if we start going into those kind of metrics and trying to hold that value chain or the ecosystem to influencers, then I think we're beginning to lose the plot. Because if you look about what actually goes in terms of really driving a sale, there are many factors, of which, yes, an influencer can be a strong attribute in terms of propelling or being a proponent of driving that offtake. But I think in its best form, and in my personal view, in its best state, is getting people up to a stage of intention to purchase. And then after the brand has the responsibility of taking the funnel of people that it's been brought to now converting. So conversion for me is for them bringing a funnel of people into a specific environment that now allows the brand to do its magic.
Wow. Jesus. Today, I think we're going to actually just release snippets, because this is a masterclass. This is really crazy. So again, let's move forward. Let's shift gears. I have a question, and we have to set the record straight now. Stories. I want to talk about innovation, right? Let me put it that way. Very recently, stories have been used as advertising boards. Edgar, you're known to have started it, but I'll give you the opportunity to tell us how it started, what was the inspiration, because a lot of people are doing it now, and there are different rates and so on. So first of all, I'd like to find out, how did it really start here in Kenya, specifically for you, on your channel?
Mm-hmm. For like Instagram stories, I don't think I was the first to do it. I think before, brands and so many influencers used to use their stories. You just put one ad and then they have their normal content. But like me back in January, when I just started, I think it was right after I showed up in the Daily Nation, the paper. So all of a sudden I had all this fame, and I was so grateful and appreciative to my audience for getting me here. So I wanted to give back to them. And I thought some people do giveaways, like you give away 10,000, 100,000. So I decided, why not post people on my page? And so many of my audiences had businesses. So I decided to do a free giveaway. So anyone with a business could DM me and I could post their business. And we got over so many, I think over 500 people submitted. And on Instagram, it's only max 100. So when I did that giveaways, people are so appreciative, and so many people came back to me with their feedback saying, you helped me do this. Like, I remember even a girl selling hair. She made 79,000 in that one day. And that's when I saw the opportunity that, maybe I should start advertising on my stories, because I give out content and it's really free content. So how can I monetize the content I give and make it in such a way that people get entertained, and as well, I get paid, and also the businesses I'm advertising also get it. So that's how it started. I gave away something free. I saw people are very interested, so I started charging for it. So pretty simple, 1 + 1. So with time, back then in January, I could only put like a few ads on my stories. If you make your stories have like 20, 30 ads, like it looks unreasonable because people do not follow you to watch ads. Let's be honest, no one would do that. So in January, it was pretty impossible to do what I'm doing right now, where I have an entire day where I just post ads. And that's something I think a lot of people don't understand. People like have influence or celebrity, you've gotten to where you are because of your content, because people see value in what you're giving them. So trying to pivot to also doing advertisements, like they're not there to watch ads, they're there to watch you. So you need to have such a loyal following that they're actually willing to sacrifice a day or a few spots in your stories to support you and also support other people's business. So it's taken time to build an organic audience which can really support you and root for you for this to even be possible. Because trust me, if anyone tried it tomorrow just to put ads, no one would watch. Honestly, no one would watch. So it's that loyalty, that people really rooting for you and people really wanting you to do well and get paid that actually makes this even possible.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'd say, that's how it started, and that's how we are here. It wasn't possible from a few months back, and it's taken a lot of time and work and a lot of stories and content, and people really have to stand up behind you.
Wow, geez, you've changed my view on this. I didn't know that there was a backstory, and it was such a deep story. So Yami Mami, are you currently doing that, or are you going to do that as well? Just and what's your philosophy around this particular thing?
So first of all, I don't know why people keep saying that Edgar invented this whole model. We've been doing it for years. But I think what Edgar has brought onto it is that whole thing of having a whole day that is actually, just the ads, which I personally feel is very brave. As an avid follower of your stories, though, me on that day, I'm just like, why? Where's the tea? Where is the tea? But like you're saying, I guess your followers need to support you enough for them to be like, we just want this guy to get paid, Mate. Like already guys are taking him to court. Can he just get paid? Can he just have some money? So I feel like for you, you've been able to do that. And I like the fact that you have it on 2 days a week. For me, what I do and what I've done, since I started influencer marketing is just like using the stories, but as not really as advertising boards, so to speak, but just to create content around different brands. Initially, I would only do it for big corporates, but now I have like more and more, I find that actually my passion is working with small businesses, because with small businesses, they are the ones who see like the tangible, instant, conversion, instant money in their pocket, literally. Like you see lives changed every day just because you posted this drink that someone is selling, or this lipstick, or this follow this page. Like literally, it's such a rewarding system all around when you work with small businesses. So what I do, mine is different from Edgar's, because first, for one, I think I charge significantly more than Edgar. So mine are not like as many, like I wouldn't do like 100 different ads or different stories in a day. I'll probably do maybe 3 to 4, or maybe sometimes 2, like around 3 to 4, maximum 5 in a day of small businesses. Basically the idea is, for me, I try to fit the product or whatever it is that I'm selling into my life. Whereas on Edgar stories, it's more of just like, it's like an ad, like a billboard, so to speak, which I also
I have the impression that we've lost Yami Mami. So we're going to go directly to the brands, and then we'll bring her back.
There was one thing I forgot to answer. Are the prices arbitrary? Can I answer that?
Please go ahead.
For the prices, for me, I've always looked at what Instagram is charging, and then I adjust accordingly. Let's say, for example, for the reach I get, let's say when I'm doing a trending story, I could get like 100,000 views on my story. If you actually check that on Instagram, that would cost you around 15 to 20,000 if you were to pay Instagram for the exact same reach. So for me, I set my prices according to that. So let's say for a Kenyan, asking them to pay 20,000 for a story it's hard to convince them, but yeah. So yeah, the prices are not so much arbitrary. I guess you have to price what's the value of what you're doing, and I guess it depends on your kind of content. Like for Yami Mami, she would strategically include whichever brand she have, depending on the content she's making. So let's say if she's talking about, let's say, a baby, maybe she'd put a baby formula in there. So that also is a different price. While as for me, I can be talking about divorce, and then I put a soap there, which has nothing to do with the content. So I guess also depending if the brand aligns with the particular story or whatever you're talking about, that also makes it a little higher because it makes sense. So that if I'm talking about babies and I put a crib, that aligns very well, and everyone's interested in babies. So when they see a crib, they buy instantly. So depending on what exactly you're talking about, yeah, that determines prices as well.
All right, I see that your mommy is back. But what I would like to do is, no problem, no problem. You know, this is just the way it works. So I'd like to really ask a question about, and this goes to the brands and to you guys as well. So Facebook owns, let's say, Instagram, and then they've created Insta stories, and from Facebook you can advertise on Insta stories as well, right? So at what point do you guys really start competing now with Facebook for the dollar? You know, so how viable is this? I mean, should we be worried that maybe we're going to get to a point where the guys are like, okay, you know what, this money should be ours? Why is it that these influencers are making that money? Sarah Yungu, would you want to talk about that before I go to Eric? He said that it's ladies first. You know, he's a gentleman, so.
I will say Facebook did not create Insta stories. Snapchat did.
Okay. Well.
And then Facebook copied them.
Okay.
But I would say when you look at the Insta stories, when you look at TikTok, the sort of video content that people are consuming so much today, you'll notice that the brands behind them, the channels behind them, so be it Facebook or TikTok or even Snapchat, they realize that their value actually comes from people coming and creating content on their platforms. So if anything, the brands are actually working to find ways to, one, help influencers monetize from their content, because the reason I'll come to your platform is because why? There's good content. And I think the platforms recognize that they can't create all the good content themselves, but they need to actually bring in these other guys to create the content. So that's so I think the trend is going to be to encourage more people to create content, as opposed to finding ways to restrict them from making money. Because let's put it this way: if on Instagram or on Facebook, or I'm coming to watch my influencers, I'm going to be served ads in between. So if I'm served ads, it means that the platform is making money. But who's bringing people to the platform? It's the influencers, it's the content creators. Okay. So I think we are going to see a trend where platforms actually encourage content creators to create more content. I did want to say this because I'm a hijacker, that I just wanted to go back to our conversion conversation to say, when it comes to delivering a metric of conversion versus education, and this I put on the brands, I don't put it on the influencers. And I think influencers should push back, because when influencers ask and this is Sarah Oyungu speaking as a marketer, as opposed to on behalf of her organization. So when the influencers say that my metric will be to drive you X number of sales, if I'm working with an FMCG, that's particularly easy. But then if I'm working with a bigger brand that has a longer conversion funnel, then I'm working against myself. So one, I'd say, and influencers ask, what else is the brand doing to push conversion, so that you aren't measured against metrics that you have no ability to influence. But number two, tying conversion also to things like coupons, vouchers, incentives, sale one for the day, buy now and get X whatever, or a reward. like, you know, act now and then get an exclusive session with Yummy Mommy. You know, those are the things that you can actually tie yourself on. So this is my opinion. I will say that again. This is my opinion.
Right.
But just saying buy this, do that, may or may not work. So I would urge influencers to come into brands with a very pragmatic view on that. And then yeah, that's my particular point. But going back to your question, Chris, I think that this is the golden age for influencers and content creators, because channels are hungry for people's eyeballs. They're hungry for people's time. So if an influencer can bring people to your channel and drive the traffic that lets the channel sell advertising, then the influencer is valuable.
All right. Really, really good wisdom here. Mr. Achola?
Very difficult to complete an act that Sarah has just articulated very well. And the only analogy I'd give to make that, to drive credence or credibility to our point, is look at Netflix and how Netflix evolved. It started by the Hollywood guys going on strike, and the producers saying where we're going to get content from. And so they bought content from producers, and then had the birth of Netflix. I see no difference. Everybody can create a technology platform, but how do you monetize it? The role of the influencer is going to become more predominant going forward and into the future. The question now will be the quality of the influencer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for this. So are you talking about also the level of creativity, the quality of the actual content itself, how much they invested and all that? I believe that's also what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I think it's two-spoke. Okay? I think what's going to happen if I were an influencer, of course I'm not, would be, I think you can only go so far on your own. And then you're going to have to say, what are my tie-ups? How do I add value to my brand? And how do I give it longevity? Because I think that's the biggest challenge. If we look at the influencer, I think you're good up to a point. Then you have to either renovate or innovate yourself. And sometimes collaborations and the power of collaboration gives you time and gives you value. Okay, so I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching in terms of how influencers, appeal to the market and how they appeal to advertisers and how they appeal to brand. And now we're getting into the new spoke on how they appeal also to platforms. Okay, ultimately everybody is chasing audiences, right? And so for you to build new audiences or authentic audiences, you can't do what you did last year, all right? Because then you become relic and you become irrelevant, and then you become predictable. And I can tell you for free, that is why the advent of social media and digital and technology, I think, has taken a significant seat ahead of a lot of traditional platforms. Why? Because they're unpredictable. The expectation, the market is evolving, they're evolving, and that newness, that crispness is what has actually been a hook to attract customers and consumers to want to either engage new platforms and new influencers.
Jeez, knowledge. Thank you very much. I see Yummy Mommy nodding there, but before I suppose you would like to say something, but before that, Eric, you said something very important: collaboration. Collaboration, because I think we will get into a very interesting space if some influencers come together, and then go and approach a brand and say, listen, we see what you're trying to do. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's something, Yummy Mommy, is it something that you would consider doing? Instead of trying to make your money on your own, would you consider contacting fellow influencers for a particular brand to actually make the message, to make the campaigns much bigger? What are your thoughts on this?
No, I don't think that I would do that. One, because I don't like sharing money. And two, Because you know what? Something that I realized very early on in my influencing career, when I first started out, I would send out proposal after proposal to companies to tell them, hey, this is what I can do for you. This is what I'm offering. This is what you'll get in return. This is what I propose. And I realized out of all the proposals that I sent that I never got a really favorable response. And I quickly realized that brands already have their plans. They already have what they are planning to do. They already have what it is that they want to achieve. And if they already have a scope for influencers, they probably have already chosen who those influencers are. So I realized that you're better off just like working on yourself, working on your content, working on your platform, so that you are in a space where the brands know you exist and the brands are aware that what you can do for them. So actually, like right now, for the past year and a half, I don't send out proposals. I wait to be called, and not from a pompous point of view. I'm humble. I thank God. I'm in letter upper. But all I'm saying is that I focus on creating good content. I focus on growing my audience. I focus on keeping my audience loyal and happy. I try to inspire them, encourage them, educate them, entertain them, so that when the brands do reach out to me and I'm creating content that is in partnership with them or in collaboration with them, it makes sense and it feels like just a natural, part of my life, as opposed to like trying to make like all your content being sponsored content or constantly chasing after the brand. Because the reality is that brands, they have their plans, and like once they've already thought influencers, probably at some point, if it's like a motherhood brand, they've already thought, yummy mommy. If it's something else, they've already thought, okay, maybe we should go with Patricia Kihoro or something else. So that one, for like coming together to approach a brand, I don't think so. That being said, there are some agencies that I've worked with who sort of do that work and who sort of do the in-between. For example, there's this platform called Fan Influence. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's called Fan Influence. And what they do is that they have like an online platform where they have like many influencers on the platform. And what they do is that they go and pitch their services to let's say a brand, and the brand, if they advertise with the influencers through them, they are now like in charge of like tracking, especially it's specifically for stories. So they're able to track all the metrics, how many people viewed, how many people swiped up, how many people clicked on the link, how many people followed your page based on that. So I think the agencies do that. But me as an influencer, I don't think I would now go at it. Tushikiliane mkono twende Telcom. I don't think so.
All right, thank you very much for this. Eric, I don't know if you would like to say something. You seem to, would you like to say something quickly about this? Because we're about to move to the next one. Mr. Edgar, Mr. Edgar, be on standby. There's a question coming for you right now.
Absolutely. I think what you'll find is more and more brands are very, very clear in terms of outcomes. Brands that don't have agility and openness to want to co-create and to listen to what's happening in the marketplace will find themselves irrelevant and relic. I'd like to encourage the young mommy to talk to a lot more brands, not necessarily with a proposal, but for an invitation to have a conversation. You'll be pleasantly surprised how the market has evolved.
Interesting.
Noted.
Yes, and because I'm unruly, I'm breaking in. I totally second Eric on that. We know our outcomes. We know what we want to achieve. But I think brands that are aware and conscious are also aware that we don't know what we don't know. So when I personally, as a marketer, will take meetings from any influencer who comes to me and says, I have an idea, or I have an angle, or have a perspective that maybe you have not thought about for your brand. So it's up to the influencers to kind of do their homework on what the brand is, what the brand loves, and to say, hey, I have a bunch of followers who fall in this bucket, who might be of interest to you. Hey, let me bring this to your attention. So we're listening. We're actually listening.
Thank you very much for this, Sarah. Before we see that there are quite a few questions that are coming through, so we need to remember we're doing this because we want to be in touch with the audience as well. So we're going to, after, I think we have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions that I wanted to ask you guys, but I think after this next one, we're probably going to go into Q&A, and if we have a bit more time, we might come back to these questions that I have. So let me test your knowledge on movies. With great power comes great responsibility. What movie?
Spider-Man.
Oh man. Okay, I see. So that's it.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Spider-Man. So that's it, guys. I know that, and this happens to a lot of influencers, especially with PR packages that have become the new norm now. You get sent a lot of packages. You decide that, you know what, hey, I've tested this product. It looks cool. Let me talk about it. You do a story about it and so on. It starts working. 1 week later, you realize that the thing is not working. Edgar mentioned something like that before, where he had a restaurant and then he realized he advertised a restaurant and just realized that the food was actually not up to standard. So when is it right? Because you guys have some tremendous power. You can break a brand, kind of by talking negatively about the brand. So when, Edgar, and I'd like you to take that. So what is the right balance? When can you really talk negatively about a brand?
I think for me, like when someone approaches me, like I treat them all the same. So you get fair treatment. I believe you have a good product, but now sometimes after I've advertised you, let's say one person comes in and complains, two people come and complain, three people come and complain. So I take an, especially me, anyone who I deal with, I handle it very personally and I get offended very personally because, so I go and ask the brand, so what happened here? What happened here? What happened here? And I give you a chance to explain what happened, and I give you a chance to resolve it with the person who's offended. Because let's be honest, sometimes also we can have difficult customers. So if I actually discover that, yes, you are not forthright with something, or something you're selling is not what you advertised, then I cancel you immediately. I'm not even shy about it. I think that's even why some people trust my platform, because I'm not afraid to speak negatively or positively. I'll tell the truth as it is. If you go and do something that we can all see you messed up here, I won't pretend. I won't cover you. There's even no amount of money. So it's very important that for the customers, the clients, the brand as me and the person man avatars, that we all have a good relationship. Because if you're selling something good, then no one needs to, there are no problems. But if there are problems occur, we try to mediate behind the scenes. But if it cannot be fixed, then there's only one choice left. And I have to be, like I said, my number one loyalty is to my audience, always and forever, because of them is I have this platform. So I will always treat them as first. So for me, you mess up, I won't be shy about it. I will tell the audience what you did.
All right. Thank you so much for this, Edgar. Yummy Mommy, you receive a lot of PR packages. I don't even have to ask you. So how do you deal with that? And I know I'm sure you had this kind of situation. So how do you deal with that?
Okay, first, I mean, responding to what Edgar is saying, because my approach is quite different. You say that your number one loyalty is to your audience, but even those people who have those small businesses are your audience, by the way, and they're your audience who are also supporting your platform by paying you money for you to advertise. So, yeah. So I feel, like, for me, it's such a huge quagmire that I actually was talking about it on my platform this last week. I asked my audience, guys, what do you want me to do when I try a product? And maybe I had said, oh, look at these great hair clips that I received. And then after 3 months or something, the hair clip breaks. Like, do you want me to come and now tell you, oh, don't buy those hair clips, or should you still go ahead and do it? My approach is very different. When I'm working with a big brand, assuming they have paid, not assuming, they have paid me a lot of money for me to be speaking about their brand. If I have, probably by that time I've already tested the thing before, whether it's a product or a service, and probably it was working well. But if at some point I realize things are not as they seem, or like I realize that there's some kind of like integrity issues with the product or the service, more often than not, because I have been paid to speak about that thing, at that moment, I won't now immediately go online and say, by the way, me, I've canceled this brand. Don't even go and bank there. Don't even go and buy this. I won't do that. All I'll do is that I'll probably sever my relationship or my ties with the brand at that moment, because there's once money has exchanged hands, there's a certain form of responsibility that you feel towards that particular company. And I don't think that is me lacking integrity. I think it's just being smart, because obviously you're trying to also build your name in the brand. So at that point, I would probably just stop engaging about that particular product. Probably months down the line, I might mention, why I stopped working with that particular brand, but I might not cancel them immediately. When it comes to small businesses, I'm very, like my heart bleeds for small businesses because I know what it's like to be like, you have bought these lipsticks and like with all your money, all your savings, you have bought them and you need for them to sell. So more often than not, if a small business, like something goes wrong with their product, I might not cancel them because the stories that I've had are crazy. Like the other day, there's a lady who sent me a top, which I had come online and I had recommended it. And I had said, guys, buy this top. But like the second I washed it, like a week later, I washed the top and the top literally disintegrated into like paper, guys, into like paper. And I was like, oh my God. But the lady had messaged me and she's like, I'm a single mom and, I'm trying to support my 2 kids. And she like such a sob story. And she's like, she's trying to support her 2 kids. This is the only money that she has. This is the only way that she's using to make money. And her suppliers, she had gotten a supplier from China, but turns out he had duped her and sent her these products. And by the time she realized that they were not good quality, it was too late. She had already sold some of them. So times like that, may just ask myself, like, what is more harm? Like to cancel this person and then their business is shattered forever, or to just like let people live and learn. Because also when I recommend things to my audience, I always tell them, please do your research before you go buy anything. Don't just see Yummy Mommy has said it now, okay, send M-Pesa instantly. I tell them, do your research so that when you purchase, it's also your own responsibility because you decided you are going to buy it, So yeah, I usually take it like I don't have a standard that I'm going to cancel them. I take it as it comes. I let my spirit lead me into what I'm going to do. But I can't say that I'll definitely cancel them or I'll definitely not speak out. I take it as it comes, honestly.
All right, thank you very much for this, guys. We're going to go into.
I'd like to disagree a bit with Yummy Mommy.
All right, let's go with that one.
This is what I think is wrong with the industry. Influencers, they're very. When you are promoting it, you are very passionate and energetic about it, and then when they do something wrong, you keep quiet and do nothing. And then the problem is you've left that mindset in your audience that this product is good, and many months down the line, if a product is bad, they will keep experiencing it, and you actually lose your credibility because people wonder, why did you advertise such a shit product? And then when something is said about it, no one does anything. Like the other day, they were exposing, I don't know, was it Always or something, that it was causing some itchiness in some, and people said nothing. All the influencers that were used to promote it, they all said nothing, and the audience was wondering why were they so passionate to promote it, but when things go wrong, everyone all of a sudden is quiet. They don't want to offend anyone. They don't want to ruin relationships. Why not just say the truth? I'm actually happy with some brands that have actually had to cancel. They came back to me and they said, we did this, and this is how we fixed it. They fix it. I show it to my audience. They did this, and they fixed it. They either gave meals, they either changed the staff, they either whatever they did to fix it. It shows that even them, they're accountable to their customers and my audience, and we all benefit in the end because whatever issues they were having, they fixed it, and they were very public about it. It was not hush. No one kept quiet or pretended nothing is happening. So this is a problem with the industry. Influencers are used to promote a certain product, and when something goes wrong, no one wants to say anything.
All right, thank you so much for Sarah. Would you like to say something?
I'm the unruly one, and I'm dying here. The always, without getting into too much detail, the always discussion has been a passionate discussion on Twitter for a long time.
Yeah.
Not a new thing, for a long time. So that comes back to influencers doing their due diligence, just the way brands do their due diligence. Influencers need to do their due diligence on a brand before they jump on the bandwagon. I agree with you, Edgar, in the fact that you can't just keep quiet. I was shouting yay about this brand just the other day. Something went wrong. I have no assurance from the brand that they corrected it. I have no assurance from the brand that they are fixing issues, and that I agree with. Then you just say, hey boss, I need to come and say that I do not support you, and I might even say it on my channels, and so I think that's part of the due diligence that brands do, that have to do. But I think what Yummy Mommy is talking about is the practice of supporting small businesses. I think also it's a fine line. In these COVID times, I've seen so many new businesses come up online that have benefited from having, I want to say, passive influencer support, where it's like, I'm not being paid, but I use this product. Guys, it was great. Let me tell you about it. There's no money that has changed hands. It's an influencer influencing for a small business that is somewhere struggling. And it so happens that I have an example of Yummy Mummy and a small business called Bub's Winning, who saw great traction because Yummy Mummy, without a penny shared, said, hey, I tried this product. It was awesome. Guys, you should give it a try. And that led to an uplift for Bub's Winning as well. So I think even as much as influencing, we have to pay the rent. Kindness does not pay the rent. It's true. But I think influencers also have a certain power. I don't know if it's a responsibility, but a certain power to where they can lift up the small people, especially in this time when we're living in days where formal employment is not an issue, is not available.
All right. Thank you very much for this, guys. We have to hear from the audience. You know, this is such an interesting conversation. You guys are so passionate about this, but unfortunately, we have to hear from the audience. I'm going to change the topic a little bit. So something very practical, right? So how do influencers make sure the brands have corrected their products before taking them? Is that really the question, Kenny? I think the question was question number. So it's rather, instead of this question, let me start with this one. How do influencers? Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Sorry guys, there's a bit of a. There was something about nano influencers here. What?
I saw that question.
Has it been removed?
Yep, sorry.
Just 1 second. Okay. So and that's to the brands, really. So I wanted Sarah to actually stay. So so it's question number 4, Kanye. To the brands, what is your take on working with nano influencers that have a small following, but that can create some amazing influence in their niche? And really, how do you choose them? How do you really select those nano influencers practically?
Great. Happy to answer that. But going back to Eric, I'll let Eric answer that because I feel like Telco has worked more with probably nano influencers than I have in my sphere. So I'll hand that over to Eric.
Okay, thanks. I think the way we work with nano influencers is we generally work with our agencies and try and bring them in and just have broad conversations. So we don't have a long-term contract. This is where we talk about bringing in people on a trial basis. You have some substantive or a niche following, anything between 1,000 and 10,000. And I mean, other people call them micro influencers, but we're just authentic to trying. And we don't have a fixed way. We don't have a defined way. We just have a expected outcome in terms of the level of deliverable. And we keep the conversation fluid. So I can't say that we have a one-size-fits-all. We're just very fluid. And again, it comes from the conversation I had slightly earlier. We're open to have conversations. So walk in, let's have a conversation. What can we do with you? We don't have biases. If you think you're a nano influencer and on this forum, I think my email address will be there. We can have a conversation. Always open to have conversations.
Eric, I've already sent you an email because you guys have never worked with me as an influencer, so I'm sending you an email. Okay, we'll meet next week.
Let's have a talk, Yummy Mommy. I think that I want to do.
There's a question here that I would like to move to, a bit of a different question from Patrick O'Gill. And the question basically is, would you push an inferior brand knowingly? Would you push an inferior brand knowingly just because you've been paid? So to any of the two influencers, Edgar, do you want to take that one?
I personally wouldn't. If I do know it's inferior, no, I wouldn't. because the thing with my platform, it's so many people, and the minute I post, the verification is so instant because someone would have already used the product or has experience with it. So I find out pretty quickly if it's good or not, even if I wasn't able to go and use it or check it myself. But because I speak to such a large audience and people from such diverse backgrounds, so the verification is very instant. So the minute I find out, I will ask the brand or whoever or the person selling the product, there are this and this complaints, explain. And if they don't give anything satisfactory, then we go along the counseling route. Kama kawaida.
Chris,
You're
I'm
so quick. Hey.
going to make a comeback on this one.
All right, let's do it that way.
Let's define inferior, because let's be honest, a brand begins with perfection. Perfection is a state of progress. Okay, so let's define inferior. Inferior is a very amorphous term, I think, for the purposes of this conversation. Let's define inferior a little bit more. Is it suboptimal in terms of failing to meet basic requirements? Then that I agree with. But inferior might mean I am lesser than the market leader. I am lesser than the number 2 or number 4 player. But doesn't mean I don't have my space in the sun. We need to define inferior.
I think what I'm going to do is, because I think I know Patrick Ojil, so I'm going to try to reframe this, on his behalf. I think by that it means a brand with an inferior product, meaning that the product is not necessarily good, does not live up to the expectations of the customer, but you would take the money and you would still, advertise. Right? So, Yabimami, you wanted to say something about it, right?
No,
I mean, I can only answer.
Go ahead, Eric.
Mr. Eric?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll go ahead. Okay, I think by that definition of what you're saying, Chris, then obviously I would never advocate for a business that I feel has an inferior product. That I would never ever do that. What I was referring to earlier is if it's something that I've already spoken about or I've already mentioned, and more often than not, it's in PR. So it's something that I received free and maybe I mentioned it and then later on discovered that it's not working out for me. That's what I was referring to. But I would never ever take money from a brand knowing very well that the product is inferior. However, as Eric is saying, sometimes what people define as inferior, it varies, because what I've realized, my audience is it's large. We have people living in Runda who their standards are different, and then you have someone else living in a slum, and those people are both following me, and they both have as much right to my content as the other one does. So to one person, maybe I can recommend a shoe from Mr. Price, to the person in Runda, maybe they're like, oh no, that's such an inferior product. Like, what, those shoes break after 3 months. But there's someone else who needs a shoe right now, which is going to cost little, look nice for now, and then in 3 months they're willing to sacrifice it. Of course, that's different from someone else who's going to afford to buy a shoe for 20,000, because then in that case, it's like both of those people, to them, those products are sufficient for what they need them for. But maybe to this other person, then the other product would be seen as inferior. So you see, there's no ultimate standard, except for, as Eric is saying, if the product meets the basic need for what it is, designed for.
Wow. Thank you very much for being so candid about this. And this is very practical as well, especially for someone that has such a wide range, a wide spectrum, so because you have to make sure that you take care of the audience, right? You can't just choose one over the other. So I'd like to move to the next question. And it's really a question of, and I think Eric tried to address it in the beginning, but there's a question that came. An influencer creates awareness, right? But who is responsible for customer engagement and retention? Really? Let's set the record straight. Eric, you want to say something about that?
Beautiful question. Beautiful question. Ultimately, I think it's 3 people or 3 dimensions of a business. Retention is a factor of created value in the mind or perceived value in the mind of the customer. And so that's where the brand promise must come to life. When I asked you to partake in my brand, what did I promise you? I might deliver on the functional, on the emotional attributes that are articulated. Because then the higher purpose of you coming into my ecosystem is well articulated. And if the brand meets those functional and emotional attributes, then there's an ecosystem that takes care of usage and retention. And that's what we talk about innovation and innovation. I'm going to give you a simple example. Many years ago, when we worked in, the likes of Coca-Cola. There was Coke, as you know it, the classic, full of sugar and everything. And then came along a customer who said, I'm concerned about the sugar content in your particular product. Do you have something meaningful for me that has similar credentials from a taste profile? Then came consumer. Okay? So what is the brand doing? The brand is creating and renovating itself to remain relevant to this particular consumer. The brand promise hasn't changed. What we're saying is we have something that's credible, something that's slightly differentiated, that meets the customer needs. And this is why we're saying brands must remain relevant, innovative, okay, and at the cusp of meeting consumer needs and wants. And here the ecosystem, where the brand manager, the influencer, and the functional core attributes of the brand then fuse together. So there is a responsibility of the wider ecosystem in terms of driving and spurring relevance, retaining usage, and driving retention amongst our customer cohorts.
Wow, thank you so much for this. I'd like to, does anyone want to add anything about that? Sarah?
Me, I want to add an amen. Hallelujah. Amen.
All right.
Amen, Eric. That's exactly what it is.
So I'm going to go to question number 1. It's actually a very interesting question. To the influencers, what is your strategy? I'm trying to see if I understand it. What is your strategy when it comes to CSR? Right? So, because meaning, I mean, you guys now you were doing it for free before. So, but now you're monetizing. So what's your real strategy? And then also, do you collaborate with companies that don't pay anything to give back to society? Meaning, would you do that? Would you work with a brand that is actually just maybe doing something for the society and they wouldn't pay you anything? Would you do the work just to give back?
I personally do sometimes. When you become an influencer, being an influencer is not all that Yummy Mommy is. I mean, it's like, I'm just a person living my life. It's just that my life is online. So my approach to CSR before is the same as my approach to CSR now. If it's something that makes sense to me, like if someone sends me something that I feel is worth speaking about, just like the same way I speak about different products and services, even when I'm not being paid to speak about them, because maybe it's something that matters to me. It's something that I am passionate about. So either way, even when it comes to like CSR or like, companies that, for example, want me to post something, but I'm not being paid, if they send it to me and I feel like it's something which I resonate with, my audience would appreciate seeing, then anyway, I'm going to post it. What I don't post, however, is medical appeals, because I found myself once in a really, really just headachy situation where I had posted a medical appeal and then it turned out that actually it was a false one. And I realized that because I get so many in a day, like I can get maybe up to 10, 15 medical appeals in a day, it's really hard for me to do background checks to see if someone is actually genuine. It makes me feel bad that I can't post, because like the other day, someone sent me a poster of her sister she said has gotten an accident, she's in the hospital, they really need blood. Not really sure, they really need money so that she can go to surgery. And then I told her, I'm sorry, unfortunately, I don't post medical appeals. The next day, she sent me a message to say, by the way, my sister has died. And it's because you didn't post on your page. My sister is now dead. I hope you die. I hope all your children, like it was a whole thing. So things like that make me feel bad. But I know that ultimately, it's really difficult for me to be able to like assess what is actually genuine and what's not. But if it's like, I mean, something which I'm able to, that can be backed up, or something that I've seen even other people talking about, and like it's authentic, it's viable, then I have no problem, posting it even without being paid.
Geez, thank you very much for this. Some heartbreaking stuff right there. So I just can imagine what you guys go through,
Yeah.
The next question, perhaps you could take that one. So it's basically, how do influencers create a link from their digital sphere to actual uptake? They feel that there's a big missing link in the current state of influencer marketing. So how do you really systematically create a link between the actual uptake, between your digital sphere and the actual uptake? Whatever that means.
I'm not understanding that question.
Whatever that means.
Uptake of what?
Uptake of the
question?
The product that you would be selling, basically. So how do you really, is there a systematic way for you to do that? I've seen that on your channel. I mean, you show results. You actually do quite a bit of analysis. So there's some sort of science, behind all this, right? So what is the science? What's the method, more or less?
For me, actually, like for a lot of people I advertise, I always get feedback. So I ask them, how was the ad for you? They tell them, I show them the stats from my end so they can see how many people viewed their ad, how many people clicked the link, how many people went to their page, and they can see like an estimate of how the ad did. But it's not very precise, because with most of, if let's say when advertising on Instagram stories, someone can screenshot, someone can follow you, someone can like keep it for later, or they just have it in their minds that this page has this thing that I've been looking for, and so they can come and become customers much later. So, but I can give them a rough estimate from the numbers that Instagram gives me to see how well their ad was received. And sometimes it usually depends brand to brand. Sometimes you can be selling something that people are interested in, and sometimes you're selling something that people don't really want. So I usually tell all my clients, it's really up to you to convince the audience that they want this. It's my job. I'm just the platform. I'll give you the audience, but it's your job to really communicate through your ad or whatever you're trying to sell that they want this. And that's why my prices are a little affordable, because it is up to you. I just give you the platform. It is up to you to convince the audience they need whatever you're selling.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to move to the Sarah, you would like to say something?
If I could just say a quick thing on what Edgar said. I think that's a very key point. For small businesses, having a rate card that is clear is an advantage, because they know before they come to you what you can afford. If you are dealing with larger brands, this is my own opinions, personal advice: don't publish a rate card. Because come first, hear what the brand wants, and then give them a cost, so that as an influencer, you don't undercut yourself, where the brand comes and says, but you've been doing these things for 500 bob, or at the same time overpricing yourself so that the brand never even considers you. So from a rate card perspective, I'd say for small businesses, publish that rate card so they know what they are getting into when they get into you. If you're dealing with larger brands, hear the scope first, then share the cost.
All right, guys, we have to move. There are lots of questions, and we're just about to end. So I want to make sure that we address this next question. Eric, the first rule of PR is brands have to be accountable. No one has mentioned that influencing was traditionally a PR tactic and not really advertising. What do you have to say about that? Let me read again. You're muted right now. So, So the first rule of PR is that brands have to be accountable. And in this discussion, no one has mentioned that influencing was traditionally a PR tactic and not really advertising. So it's a comment that someone made. Would you want to say something about that?
I think you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, the buck stops with the brand and the brand owner. The credibility of what they are putting out into the market resides with the company and the brand. What the role of the influencer is to propagate and to heighten, the value or the authenticity of a particular brand. So that comment is bang on. And I think what influencers should never be brought into is to try and pacify or to articulate a position that I think that is already demeaning. So, for example, if we talk about an inferior product that fails to meet, marketplace standards, then I think the role of the influencer is not relevant. I think the influencer, if they found themselves in that position, then I think they're eroding their value. What I would ask maybe an influencer in an instance like that is to probably be the spokesmouth or the spokesperson for the brand, that allows them, maybe the brand, to articulate a position or to articulate a response in terms of them being unable or letting down their customers. That's the very least I'd expect of an influencer.
All right. Thank you very much for this. So Guys, we might need to extend just a little bit just to answer one or two last questions. The next question that I have is directed to Yami Mami. Have you ever worked with a brand and you did not deliver as promised, in terms of sales? And then what happened after?
Okay, so first of all, none of my deliverable is never a sale, by the way. I don't ever put deliverables based on sales because I know there's so many factors that affect, what actually goes into someone actually buying the product. And I think Eric touched on this earlier. However, I have had instances where brands feel like the campaign didn't work as well as they thought that it was going to work. And because of several things, because sometimes, honestly, I'm not trying to absolve myself of responsibility, but brands who come and they expect the world and they only have a Nairobi budget. They want the world, but they have a Nairobi budget. And then they'll come and say things like this. We are really trying to create impact. We really want to create impact. We really want this to be huge, but yet they're doing nothing else to support what you're doing. So for example, there are brands who they'll only come and work with you as one influencer. They have launched a whole new product. They want to only work with you as one influencer. They're doing no other advertising. They're doing no other market awareness. Even on their own page, they're not even posting anything. In those instances, that it's just like, how do you want me to help you? So times like that, all I do is just say, okay, we did the best. This is what, in fact, many times I try to just give them advice on how I think the next time we could actually, even if we work together, we can actually make it better. A concrete example, for example, is a mall that I worked with. I won't mention what the mall is, but it's based somewhere near to Rivers. It's not to Rivers, but it's based somewhere near there. And this mall it's a very deserted mall. So they wanted me to sort of drive traffic to the mall, which I worked with them on that campaign. But honestly, it was difficult to drive traffic there because in reality, they just have no shops that are open there. So it's like, okay, fine, you're telling people come and eat at this place, come and eat here. But by the time you've driven to the other side of the world to go to a mall, surely you need to be offering people more than just, than just a restaurant. So in that case, for example, they were a bit disappointed because they didn't get as many people as they wanted. And I was like, listen, I've done my best. But if you want a successful campaign, work on building, on attracting more merchants into the mall first, and then now work on an influencer campaign, because influencers can't come and fix everything if what you're selling is already hard to sell.
All right, thank you very much for this, guys. In the spirit of time, even though we can see that we have quite a few questions actually still coming through, unfortunately, guys, we had 1.5 hours, and there's still some questions, and this leads me to talking about what we want to do next. We've realized something. We realized that whether you're a small business or a big business, what happens is you go and you advertise, you get a lot of clients, then you have a problem, and those clients connect with you on digital. And then you have a problem because you need to manage those guys. They send queries, you need to answer very quickly. Even influencers, when you're small, it's okay. Then your DMs start growing, then either you hire an assistant, and if you become really big, it becomes really uncontrollable. So what are the best practices? What do you do? And this is the kind of things for businesses or for influencers. This is the kind of thing that we're going to try to address in our next show. So we're going to move away from influencing, but still keep some sort of connection. And it will be basically, how do you really manage your customer? How do you really win in the age of the customer? So it's something along those lines, and we expect to actually bring a lot of panelists that will bring a lot of values. But before that, I would like to thank my panelists. Guys, thank you so much. Everything went very well today. I know you would have wanted to say a lot more. And we are so fortunate. Thank you, Edgar. Thank you, Yami Mami. Thank you, Erica Chola. And thank you, Sarah Yungu. You really were absolutely beautiful and absolutely enlightening. And I've learned so many things, and I'm sure that the audience also has. Unfortunately, we don't have time for any, why not? Do you guys want to say something before we go? Let's just do this. Eric, what do you want to say? One thing.
Great opportunity, great banter. Appreciated the conversations. Love to do it again.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yami Mami?
Thank you so much for having me. For everyone who's tuning in, I know people always have so many things to say about influencers, but remember that we are just real people out here really living real lives. Like, I am a mother, I am someone's daughter, I am someone's wife. So before you send any message that you think is just like, oh, but this person, think about that. But thank you for having me on here, Africa Digital.
Thank you so much. Sarah Yungu?
Sure. My last words would be first to say thank you for my women in digital, who, when they knew I was having this panel, gave me lots of interesting opinions across brands to bring into this discussion. Women in Digital WhatsApp group. Hey. And then the other thing is to remember that we're all influencers in our own right. People actually believe or take up products or experiences based on what we tell them. So use your power of influence wisely, and then don't be loose. Don't just say things because you've had one bad experience.
All right, thank you so much. And then Mr. Obare, what are your last words?
I'd just like to thank you guys for the opportunity. It's been quite entertaining and interesting. I'm glad to meet other marketing directors and see what you guys think of the whole space. Maybe we'll be working soon together. But yeah, it's been quite informative. I like the session.
Yeah.
All right, guys, on this, we would like to say thank you for tuning, and stay tuned. All the people that have registered already, when we have the next topic, you will automatically receive an email, that tells you what the next topic is, and you don't have to necessarily register because it's done automatically. It's always a pleasure to have you, and have a nice weekend.